All right. Hello, 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 everyone. For women visionaries in transition who are navigating change and stress and transformation and want to create a solid foundation of wellness practices, productivity practices, spirituality practices. I am the change guide for growth that helps you streamline your time so that you can have more fun in less time with less stress, because that's what we all want, right? So we are jumping on for my Visionaries in Transition Facebook Live series, where I interview the amazing and inspiring impact makers in my own network that have shaped and discuss the transitions that have shaped our lives and businesses. So if you're joining us, please like, comment, and share. Subscribe if you're joining us on YouTube, and let us know that you're here. So today I am talking to Heather, we were just talking about your doctor portion of it and how many Heather Clarks there are out there to join the Claire Joneses out there. But I'm glad that this Heather Clark is talking with this Claire Jones today.
I'm overjoyed to be here, Claire. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, totally. So let's get into it. How did you get to where you are today? Give us the backstory.
Through disaster. So this was
Yes.
this wasn't this is beautiful, let me step forward. I tend to learn through contrast. So the more condensed version is I was working as a pharmacist and tried several different jobs. I'm like, I'm good at it, but this sucks. And I burned out, and not in a let me just take some time off kind of a way. It was more in a I cannot get off the couch kind of a way. Like I can't remember stuff that I'd known for years.
Yeah.
It was terrifying. And for those that don't know, burnout is essentially like prolonged stress and frustration. So I'm like, that was just pretty much my life. And as I recovered, it occurred to me I could help other people recover from stress and burnout. And then, so I was doing things I wouldn't normally do, like with coaching, business coaching. I know you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I had 3 people in 10 days say, well, Heather, you're psychic, right? And the first one, I'm like, okay, whatever. Okay. The second one, I'm like, what does that even mean? And she's like, I was like, am I going to have to wear long flowing dresses, headscarves, carry a crystal ball? Like, what are we doing here? She's like, no, it just means you can read energy. I was like, well, yeah, I can read energy, but I'm not psychic. By the third person, I leaned into it and discovered, okay, this is a big deal. I could really help people in deeper ways than I'd ever before known. And it had me hooked. It like let me get over myself because I never felt more alive when I was in the work. And what I've discovered later is I'm actually wired to do this work, hence the energy and joy that comes from it. So through several different iterations, that's why what I really love helping people do is reclaim that energy and the joy, but coming in through the lens of sustainable stress management, stress mastery, because if you don't have that, you don't have the solid foundation for sustainable success, for the peace, for prosperity, to like really have more. So I like to help people bake it in so that there's no hustle, so that your needs are getting met, everything's sustainable. Everything you do generates more without the what am I going to do? So just love the work so much.
I absolutely love that. Sustainable stress management. Like you are speaking my language.
Right.
I'm like I know the burnout cycles. I know the stress management because our external work is our internal work at the end of the day.
Yes.
And you're completely speaking my language. Like for me, I look at it as like navigating change, which causes stress, but definitely navigating stressful situations and doing it sustainably is going to be your indicator for success, because stress is always going to be around you.
Yeah.
And it's how you choose to engage with it that makes the biggest difference at the end of the day.
It does. And I like to return the choice to people because when you're in stress, I think you've had a history of some burnout. You like understand the burnout cycles from the inside, and it shifts your perception so that for real, you don't feel like you have a choice. So like, oh, no. There's a process. There's a way to do this. It's very simple. And I'll try to not go on forever about stress because I was like, can I talk all day for several days in a row about stress? You bet I can. But what I have found helpful is to just share with people what stress is, because we
Mm,
all know, we all get it. But here is a metaphor and a framework that is based in reality, because that's crucial, but it also helps figure out what's going on. It is
mm,
simply a perceived challenge to normal balance.
mm,
Real, imagined, remembered, or anticipated.
mm.
Internal or external, it's just a perceived challenge to normal balance. And I don't know about you, but for a lot of people, when you hear that, they're like, oh, because we tend to make it mean, oh, I'm stressed because I've jacked this up, because I missed something, because I should have done this differently, because someone else failed me, because of like, and it's like, oh, no, this is just a perceived challenge to normal balance. Okay. What are
Mhm,
my needs here?
mhm,
Okay. How can I get those met in a functional way that's
mm.
generative and easeful? Like, and then
Totally.
that's like the super short story to sustainable stress management. As you might imagine,
Mhm.
there's a few more details,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
that's,
yeah.
that's the high
Well,
level.
what I want to highlight with what you just said is normal balance,
Mhm.
because I think that's a foreign concept to people more often than not. So, like, I talk to so many people who that stress response is just their norm. And so they can't even fathom what it looks like to have normal balance.
Okay, I love this so much because you'll get this because you help people navigate change and transformation as well. Like that's your whole shtick. And not shtick in a dismissive way, but like that's your
I
core
will
thing.
own that totally.
Right? It's normal balance is not optimal balance. It's like, what's your norm? Because when people are being invited into something more, when growth is happening, it's incredibly stressful. And what they're used to is very different than what's available. So the improvement is stressful. When
Mhm.
things get better, that's stressful.
Yeah.
And a lot of people hear that and they're just like, oh my God. But yeah, like the whole thing is stress.
Yeah.
But we don't need to let it get us down. It's like, okay, that's stress. It's like, okay, and the wind is blowing. That is
Mhm.
fine. The sun is shining. It is not like whatever. And there's stress. Here's how to move through it.
Totally. I love the way you phrase that, because that's actually why I call it elevated wellness, and just instead of just wellness, because I like working with people who have that baseline already established and who are willing to then challenge themselves even more by elevating the normal.
Mhm.
And like, I'm not here to drag you across the finish line.
No. Pass.
Yeah, right. I'm here to be like, all right, we can make this better. And it will take, effort, and it will take intention and meaning and strategy to do so, but the payoff is so worth it.
It, it is. It is. And then that way you can really support people through those incremental changes, the ones that feel like, are we even doing anything? Are we getting anywhere? And I'm always like, we're building a solid foundation here. It might feel like you're not getting anywhere, but it's like little tiny baby steps to that
Mm-hmm.
quantum leap. And then when they
Mm-hmm.
do have those big changes, they're like, how'd that happen? Like, remember all the other work we did?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
this. So I
yeah.
love you do the similar things. Yeah, it's really important when you're building out whatever you're building out, when you're
Mm-hmm.
making that vision into a reality, like how does it serve you? How can it support you? How
Mm-hmm.
can you go about this in a way that supports and sustains you at every point in the journey?
Yes, totally. Totally. So that brings up the next question: is what transitions have shaped your journey along the way?
That's such an interesting question, and my brain is not handing me anything handy. So let's just see where we get with that. Um, so the transitions, oh yeah, the transitions that have been the most meaningful
Mm.
are the ones where I have been able to claim who I am at a deeper level. Because in my world, what I've come to see is that when you can really restore yourself, and by self, I don't mean like this is my carefully crafted identity. This is Heather on Zoom. This is like, no, this is my identity is actually serving who I actually am. But every transition has been some claiming of that deeper me and
Mhm.
releasing my resistance to it and having all my feelings about it. Um, I used to call it having the big upset,
Mm,
but last week I was taking a class about visual thinking,
mm.
and she said, well, it's more like it's a creative tension and waiting for it to resolve. And I was like, oh, thank you, Brandy Azurback. That's fantastic. It's a
I need to process that for a moment.
right. And it just really put a word to, because when I'm developing a new presentation or new information's come in with the body of work, I actually go through a period where I'm like mad. I'm
Yeah,
upset and
totally,
nothing's right.
totally.
And why is blah, blah, blah. And then she gives me that's the creative tension, and it's just not yet resolved. Because when it does resolve, when it clicks, I'm like, the sun is shining, the world is beautiful. I was like, okay, it's just, and what a great example of
Yeah,
putting some language around something, which
totally.
deepens understanding and helps me claim, oh, that's not just how I roll, that's a natural part of who I really am. And I have a word for it, which helps me not only grasp what's going on, but removing all judgment from it. So
Yes,
I'm just
yes.
chef's kiss.
Ah, this is so timely. This conversation is so timely because I'm actually launching into a 2-week sabbatical next week for myself. And it's going to be a creative tension sabbatical. I didn't know that's what it was going to be, but that's the exact phrase for it. And I pretty much come to this conclusion that I need to have pre-scheduled creative tension time in my regular routines so that I can just like go grapple with that process and then come back and do the thing that I need to do. That is brilliant. I love that.
I was like, oh, that's beautiful. And you're probably also baking in the restorative time
Mhm.
because if you're not putting everything in there, it's gonna do that. But I like such an important lens, and there's been lots of examples in my life and in my work how that new lens of seeing things shifts everything.
Mhm.
And part of why that's important, especially at least in my body of work, is stress is all about perception. Everything about stress is perception. Even the chemical processes inside of our body, it's the body's perception of what's happening, which is
Mhm.
affected by so many things,
Mhm.
like nervous system regulation, like how much stress have you had. But those lenses give you a whole new way of seeing things.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, it's like the creative tension lens. Aha. Or, oh, neurodivergent. Aha. Oh, that all makes sense now. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
those new perceptions that are so crucial.
Yeah, and those are transitions. Like they,
Hmm.
for me, they are tend to be identity shifts, like of having that perception shift
Yeah.
too. And I just think that's so delicious because you're right. And every time we get to this new level of ourselves, we have to again reconnect to that deeper level of ourselves to make sure that our actions are aligned with that.
Yeah. And in the biz, we talk about make sure our actions are aligned, ensure the energy is aligned. And I'm starting to think aligned is going the way of authenticity, where people
Mm,
hear it and they're like, oh, whatever.
mm,
But I'm so on board with that
yeah.
it's because that's one of the things I do. It's like your base stress, the core root stress is the stress of not truly being yourself. The difference between who you really are and how you're being, this is your identity. All of the stress and tension is in that identity gap between them. Um, and then we try on different identities, but is it a full expression? Like, I'll just try on an old identity where, hello, I am Dr. Clark, and I have spent several days preparing for this interview. And I have, like, that's how I rolled. And it just wasn't the true me because I wasn't confident with it. I was like, oh no, what if I show up and people don't like me? And now I'm like, well, if I show up and people don't like me, okay, you're welcome. Like, it's more normal who I am.
Yes, yes, I love it. And that leads me into the next question is like, what lessons have you learned along the way through all of these, I guess, identity shifts?
Yeah, there have been lots of lessons. And one of the main lessons is it's one of what I've realized is one of the core principles, the way I operate, is
Mm.
that everything is happening for me.
Mm.
Because I used to have a lot more victim energy and I would spend a lot of time on the drama triangle.
Same,
Why is this happening to me?
same.
Why are they doing like, okay, not everything happens for a reason. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is it's an invitation to consider, well, what if it's happening for me?
Mm-hmm.
Like, for instance, burnout.
Mm.
That was a real big deal. Like, I had to go on disability from work. I like literally could not work.
Mm.
And, woe is me. And then I realized, okay, that had been the single worst thing that had happened. And it's actually the best thing because I would never have changed my life. I would never be in this work where I'm like, no joke. I feel so alive when I'm in the work. I love it. Love it. And I
Mm-hmm.
never would have done it had I not been able to like consider, well, what if this is an opportunity? Um, like in traffic, what if it's an opportunity? Somebody's in front of me driving slower than my selected speed. And I don't know how many times this has happened to you. And then pretty quick, we discover why. Oh, there was a radar enforced cop. Oh, that just saved me a ticket. Thank you, universe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's the shift. I got real excited about what I was talking about and may have lost the thread.
What lessons have you learned along the way?
Lots of lessons. I don't have to put up with anybody's BS either.
Oh,
I've gotten very good at boundaries
mm,
because if you're going to sustainably manage stress, oh, you're going to get good at boundaries.
yeah, right, right.
Like,
Me and the word no have become best friends.
right? And when I do public speaking, I try and work in every time I do it to tell people no is a complete sentence. And I leave it in because I thought, well, like we all know that now, but I got to tell you, at least 60% of the audience, if not 80%, acts like, oh my God, that's new information. Like, yeah. And you don't have to explain yourself. You may
Mhm.
choose to offer a reason or an explanation, but you don't have to. You can
Yeah,
just be a no on that. Or
yeah.
even like, you don't need reasons for stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you want to do that? Yes. Why? Because I want to.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I have two thoughts to that. Is like one, I feel like this no slash boundary conversation that we're having is totally related to like combating my personal people pleasing tendencies.
Mhm.
And so I've actually gotten into the mode where I'm probably saying no too much. I'm just like scattering around, be like, no, 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 no. But it's a response to that pendulum shift. Is
Mhm.
like I was saying yes too much before. Now I'm saying no too much. And so we get to this middle part eventually where it's balanced. That was the one response that I had to that. And then the other is that I've seen this thing going around on TikTok actually of this woman's voice who's talking about like, I do things because they please me. And then people are like, why? And she's like, pleasure.
I I actually think that's Byron Katie's voice.
Is it?
I think so because I just like for what? For joy.
Yeah.
Or like why not? That's
Yeah.
it's like in this most recent time of creative tension that I've gone through, I have discovered because I've been thinking, okay, well, what am I doing with my body of work? It's peace so that people have prosperity, like material well-being, money, health, energy, all of that. But I've just recently realized, and the whole point of anything is joy. Like that's what we're actually getting to. Joy. With
Yeah.
the freedom and ease to enjoy life. Why not?
Yeah.
So, yeah, like you don't need a better reason.
Totally.
And sometimes people will want one, like, okay, well, I don't understand that. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, because that also begs the question of what brings you joy. And so many people don't have an answer. to that question. They're like, well, I'm just trying to pay my bills. I'm just trying to be a good mom. I'm just trying to. And it's like, okay, are all those things actually filling you up though?
So I love this, and you probably have found a similar way of getting here. But the people that I work with tend to be type A control freaks who are spiritual warriors. Like, we get pissed off. We're going to burn it down. I'm like, you're my people.
Yeah.
So is joy possible? Absolutely. But it's real hard to think of, okay, joy, what pisses you off? What relieves that? Like, where's the tiny bit of satisfaction that you can find? And it depends on how you're wired. For me, it's something as simple as like picking a very small area and then just straightening and organizing. Just a little, like a little cropped Instagram type thing, and the whole place can be a disaster, but I do that and then I'm all, thank you, dopamine.
Yeah.
And that brings me joy.
Yeah.
But I don't need to have, now that I have additional discernment, I don't need everything to be sunshine and roses for me to have joy. It's more like, no, I can have joy. Or even going through the process of when my mom was dying. Like, this is deep, intense grief and joy and beauty and upset and like, and it's just the fullness of life, I think, is part of joy. Joy isn't just happy.
Yeah.
I think it's a presence. It's a being at ease with what's going on, no matter what.
I also think of it as like savoring what's going on. You know what I mean? Like, even if I'm not like laughing and having a happy response to whatever is going on, if I'm still savoring it, that's still like enjoying it. Like, when you read a really sad book, you know, and you're like crying your eyes out, and you're just like savoring that sadness, you're savoring that emotional experience of, and so you're finding enjoyment in sadness, or finding enjoyment in grief or stress or whatever we're talking about.
I agree. And one of the things I've discovered that for me, like, I love intensity. Just love it. And again, that was almost like the same creative tension lens discernment, like, oh, this is intense. And I love that. I may not love everything that's happening. Like, I am in the middle of sadness and it's intense, but there's a quality to it. I really like the word savoring. That's not something that I use a lot in my vocabulary, but boy, that hits. It really resonates. Or even, and it sounds weird to say, but even savoring grief and really opening yourself up to whatever gifts are available to you in that moment. And it's, for me anyway, it's dropping the barriers to it.
Yeah.
Seeing, oh, I'm judging this. Okay, let me see what I can do to release at least a little bit more judgment. Occasionally I just drop all the judgments, but most of the time it's like, okay, well, let me just see if I can back it off a little. And like, oh, well, why would I be judging this? What if I judged it harder? You know, I can run through all my questions, but really come to, it's that fully present, fully alive, whatever is happening.
Because then we're not rushing forward to the next thing, the next moment, the next dopamine hit.
Exactly. Well, and that isn't necessarily wrong.
No.
But I found that isn't compatible with sustainable stress management.
Yes.
The rushing forward to the next thing, that can lead to a success, but it isn't a sustainable success. It isn't a success that brings full 360 prosperity. The joy, the support, all of that. It's and now I have money and now I can enjoy it. It's like, and that's fine. If that's the way you're choosing to roll, that's great. We're probably not going to get along, but that's fine. Love and light to you. Enjoy your experience. It doesn't work for me, and I don't know that it actually works for everybody, but you know.
I mean, that's why I have this series, so that we can have these conversations and be like, when this happens, I do X and I had this type of experience, and it may resonate with you, it may not, but I'm sure there's someone out there that it does resonate with.
Yeah, it's like we're in a large conversation and there was someone who I'm introverted and I was with a large group of introverts and this person isn't. And, you know, it's not just an introversion thing, but, there's everybody talks, then there's thinking and processing, and then there's like reconnection. But this person like could not let that happen, talking all the time. And what about this? What about this? And like all the rest of us were just exhausted.
Yeah.
And I was like, I promise you nothing bad will happen during a silence. I promise. It's okay.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we could go on for ages about this. We've got a couple minutes left for today, but I think that happens, especially with women entrepreneurs in general, is because we are so high achieving just because we wouldn't be if we weren't women entrepreneurs. And so we have this tendency to just be like, we have to keep going and going and going and going,
right,
and going and going and going.
Well, it's that proving energy. It's capitalism. This is just internalized capitalism is all that is. Yeah. And that's why when I work with entrepreneurs, I'm like, what's in your calendar? What activities light you up? What helps you show up as you in the world? So for me to show up as me in the world, I need to lay around and read for at least 45 minutes a day with no obligations. It's completely open time.
Totally.
And if I don't have that, I don't do very well. Yeah. So it's like, it's in my calendar and it doesn't need to be at noon, but in the middle of the day somewhere.
Yeah. Speaking my language.
So, yeah.
I mean, that's why I always start with the schedule intensive. Like, we need to look at where you're actually spending your time, because I'm sure it's not where you want to be spending it.
Exactly. And that schedule will tell you your values too.
Exactly.
What's actually important to you. What are you spending your time and money on?
Totally. Exactly. Well, we got to wrap up for today, but this is really powerful stuff that we're talking about today. And audience, we definitely encourage you to jump in and share your own insights and stories and feelings and thoughts, whatever's coming to the table for you with us as well. We'd love to know how transitions have impacted you in your own lives. So special thanks to Heather again for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, totally. So I'm always looking for more guests. If you're interested in coming on the series and sharing your own perspectives, please reach out to me. It's actually booked to the end of October at the moment, so I recommend booking sooner rather than later. In the meantime, please comment, like, and subscribe below. You can see all of my links at linktree/liminal clarity. And then Heather, where can folks find you?
Vibrantagain.com.
Okay, great. And I'll be putting your links in the comments and in the YouTube description for easy access. So until next time, please remember that your authentic self is extraordinary, it is wonderful, and you owe it to yourself to create the elevated life that you know you are capable of. Take care, everyone.